Testing, man, testing. Hey, chat, you guys there, man? Chat, are you there? My herpers. Chat. The real herpers, man. Are you guys there? We've got all the items today to let you guys know how I shoot my wildlife macro photography. I've used this setup for some other macro work, but in most instances, this is what I'm going to be using primarily for wildlife macro photography: insects, snakes, frogs, turtles, reptiles, birds, anything I can get my hands on or other people can get their hands on that they allow me to take pictures of, always living pretty much 99% of the time out here in the wild. And I'm in my backyard, but it's my favorite place to be because that's where all my animals are, and it's beautiful out here, so it's hard not to just come out and sit sometimes. But let's hop right into this shiznit, man. So what we've got right here looks a little bit intricate, isn't super crazy to set up on your own. I mean, there are a few puzzle pieces that you're going to need to put together in order for this to come out looking something like this. So this big thing that you guys see in the front is going to be a diffuser by MK Diffuser. MK, I believe, is located somewhere in Indonesia, and he ships worldwide. You can find him on Instagram right here at MK Diffuser, as well as a few other brands of diffusers. From my understanding, they're pretty much all the same as far as the way that they break down, the way that they're usable, and the materials that are used when you're actually setting up the macro one. But I like the MK diffuser because it has this doohickey on the back here, which allows you to, and of course the wind picks up. It has this doohickey on the back here, which allows you to strap it onto the actual flash itself, as well as another Velcro strap on the underneath part to strap it to the actual lens itself. And my apologies, this is actually an AK diffuser. MK, I do apologize. I had one of yours in my last video, but this is a AK diffuser, and I think he's actually the one that's in Indonesia, and the other one is in somewhere else in Asia. But basically, this whole setup, I'll give you guys a full rundown, all the names, all the verbatims, and then kind of explain what everything is just in a nutshell. So the AK diffuser is going to be the diffuser for our flash. Our flash is going to be the Godox V350O. And then our camera itself is going to be the Olympus OM1. And the lens that is on the Olympus right now is a 60mm f2.8 Olympus lens with a Raynox DCR 250 on the front of it. So big rundown. This here is going to be our flash diffuser. On top of this, we've got a switch that has a LED light inside of it for taking those macro photos at night. It'll help illuminate your subject. And then we've got a battery pack here that connects to that LED to give it power. And then once we remove this piece, you can kind of get an idea of the actual camera setup in itself. So what we've got right here is a Godox V350O as an octagon, small flash, nothing like the big Godoxes that you'll find on a Sony camera like the one that I'm shooting this video on. This is a tiny flash, as you guys can see, maybe somewhere around 6 inches, 7 inches in total. The normal flashes are going to be almost probably about another half of the height of this one. So this is a Godox V350O, and then our camera is going to be our main body is what we're going to be calling this. So an OM1, which is one of the top of the line Olympus lenses that they sell, primarily for macro photography and wildlife photography, as well as anything else that you want to shoot. But I am familiar with a lot of macro photographers that are going to be shooting with Olympus cameras because of the fact that they have an auto stacker initiated into the actual camera itself. So what that means is this camera allows you to take photos, and while you're taking that photo, the camera will automatically stack more photos on top of each other to give you more of that small item that's in focus. So in a nutshell, say for example, if we wanted to take a photo of what you guys can't see right here, but there's a hair on the table, you may get the forefront of that hair in focus, but the remaining parts of it are going to be out of focus due to that slim depth of field because you're shooting an item that is so small, so up close. What this camera allows you to do is with that stack feature, it's going to, if you hold the camera steady, you press the button once, it's going to take multiple photos in different, how do I want to put this, in different depths of field in a nutshell, that allows you to stack and make one complete photo that will have everything in focus. So if you have an insect that's here, for example, and you're only getting the head in focus, but you want to get the full body, the legs, possibly even the abdomen and parts of the, you know, the ending of that insect, everything in focus, this camera allows you to do that without any sort of post-processing, which is why a lot of macro photographers love it. The 60mm macro, anywhere between 60 and 90, is going to be your best friend for the vast majority of your macro shots. And then what we have here on the front is going to be a Raynox DCR 250, which is in a nutshell a magnifying glass that sits on the front of your lens. And it allows you to get really, really up close to those things that are tiny. And it still works with the autofocus in the actual camera itself because it just screws onto the front. The lens just adjusts for that magnifier and allows you to still take photos of items without having to go into the manual focus mode, which is super big for me because I'm taking pictures of things sometimes one-handed with another camera here or backpack, and it's just easier to just hold the button down for focus, let the flash do what it does, and then take the photos for you. So that 60mm macro I was going to wait to get into a little bit because it's interesting. So these macro lenses are specialized to allow you to shoot at different meter ranges. So for example, this lens, because it's macro, you can shoot at 1:1, which is just going to be your normal generic macro shots and things that are possibly on the further side away from your lens. You can also shoot at 0.19 to 0.4 meters, which is going to be, you know, the distance that the thing is that you're taking a photo of from your actual lens itself. And then it goes all the way down to 0.19 meters to infinity and 0.4 meters to infinity. So what this allows you to do is, instead of the camera trying to find focus on things that are further away from your lens, it's going to prioritize these things that are right in front of you, allowing you to get into focus much quicker and get better shots on these small insects that you're taking photos of. And that's super important in the macro aspect because it now allows you to use that autofocus, not have that autofocus jump back and forth to things that are possibly in the distance or even closer, but not what you're actually wanting to get in shot. And then the lens has the ability to still capture or autofocus detect the insect's eyes as well as the insect body, because that's the kind of camera that it is. It's a macro photography camera, a camera that's used to capturing wildlife, and it is perfect at picking up on the smallest of eyes of insects, frogs, turtles, anything that you're wanting to take a picture of on the macro level. And so that pretty much wraps up everything for the actual Olympus camera. Let's get a little bit more into the Sony items. So now for our Sony camera, we've got a few things in motion. As you guys can see, I'm holding a few items here. Unfortunately, I let a friend borrow my actual Sony flash, so we're just going to hold up the Godox flash from the other camera and just let you guys know that it is another Godox flash, except this one, instead of being the V350, it is a V862. It's just a larger flash made for the Sony cameras that you can use for event photography as well. But what I'll usually do with that is I will put a trigger system on the back of my Sony camera, which Godox sells as well. That trigger is going to be basically a way for you to remove this flash from the hot shoe on your actual camera itself. So previously I was shooting with the Sony a7R III. Now I have a Sony a7 IV as well as a Sony a7 III that I will bounce back and forth between to use for my macro photography with the Sony camera. So with the Sony camera, we've got a few things in motion. So this flash is going to go hand in hand with this diffuser. What it does is it goes into this part here, Velcros around, and then you get yourself a nice diffuser to put over top of your subjects that you're going to be shooting the photos of. I do want to switch this out to one of the more hard flex diffusers with the actual metal brackets inside of it, just so that way I can have something that's wider and illuminate my subject from a wider point. So that'll allow me to have something that's maybe about, let's say, like a 12 by 12 circle, and put this flash in there while the trigger is on the back of my camera. and allow me to position it right above an animal here, possibly even from under, or even from the side, or even from the back of it if I have some people working with me as well. And that allows you to get different lighting aspects into your photos, which is what's going to make that macro photography even more indifferent than some of the things you may be seeing online. So with those two in mind, we have two lenses that go on either one of our cameras, which are the Sony a7 IV or the a7 III. We have a Laowa 15mm macro lens, which is a f4, then it goes all the way up to f32. This one is a manual focus lens. And then a lot of people don't know, but with these cameras, anything that has a very, very short minimum focusing distance, you can use those for wide angle macro photography. That's a mouthful, but wide angle macro photography. What that allows you to do is, this is a Tamron 17-28 with a very, very small minimum focusing distance. At 17, I can take a photo of an animal that's right here in front of me and have the background in with them as well. And this is where that trigger comes into play that we were mentioning before. With that trigger, it allows you to have your animal here right in front of the camera, but instead of your flash shooting directly down at it, you can point your flash up and around as well as down at the animal and create multiple points of interest inside that photo where both your background is illuminated and in focus, and the animal itself is illuminated and in focus. And then you stack those two photos on top of each other in post-processing, which unfortunately the Sony does not have the auto stacking mode like the Olympus, which is why it's super important. And what you can do there is you'll now have a photo where your background is illuminated even though it's dark, in focus, and your animal itself is in focus, and it's a nice wide angle shot that you can get. Similar to what you can get with the 15mm, but the 17 brings a little bit more of a different look to your photos than the 15 does. And the 15, this has a minimum focusing distance of about, from my understanding, damn near right in front of the lens. So I could put my finger right here and I'd be able to focus on the striations in my hand that make the fingerprint, because this lens has a minimum focusing distance, from my understanding, of like 0.1 meter, which is damn near like you can almost touch the lens and whatever it is will be right in focus. So as you guys can think about it, with these macro photography things, we have a 60mm, we have a 15mm, 17mm that goes up to a 24, as well as some other lenses that I want to get for the Olympus that will make my life a little bit easier with the autofocus aspect and having the diffuser on top, that make macro photography. So all these different lenses, the different lighting aspects with that trigger attached to the Sony or even the Olympus, allow you to get different lighting on your photos, which is going to make your photos stand out a lot more than just a normal macro photograph without that special lighting. So lighting is super important. If you guys haven't noticed, having that diffuser and having that flash either on camera or off camera is what's going to make those macro photos. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, man. It was a sort of kind of a long one, but it's always a lot to talk about when it comes to anything macro related. So I'm always happy to answer any questions that you guys may have down in the comments, man. But just make sure that you guys are subscribed. You push that like button if you enjoyed the video and made it here to the end. And I hope to see you guys real soon, man. Herb Hero, signing out. Ciao.